Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Preacher. So I was kind of confused about that beginning thing, because in my mind I was like, oh crap, this is I obviously it turned out to be just like a paintball game, but I'm sure everyone thought it was like, okay, like the girls are kind of making a run for it. They're kind of done with being, at the warehouse, and they're just like being hunted down by the guys. At first I was just thinking that was one guy going after Lacey. I had a feeling, I was like, oh, it's Clive. He's about to kill her. Oh man, this is going to suck. And it ends up being a paintball game. I was like, oh, really not what I expect. And then she falls in. I was like, holy crap. And he's just like, Lacey? And the whole situation is very tragic, obviously, because I thought that whole circumstance was going to be a little bit different than what it is. It kind of turned out to be somewhat what it was. Like, for instance, what I was talking about, what I mean is, before I talked about the fact is, I think Tulip isn't the way she, obviously, they've talked about the way Tulip, I've heard talk about Tulip not being 100% how she is a comic book, specifically like how she is now is how she becomes a little bit later on. She isn't like the way she is now at the beginning. She doesn't start off like that in the comic book, but nevertheless, I kind of got like I felt like there was a little something there when she saw Clive kind of pushing Lacey around, just like he was kind of in a foul mood. He's just dragging her upstairs, and you could see Tulip kind of have like a like disgusted look on her face. You see it again at like the preview, the beginning of the episode. But I thought it was just going to be a situation where it's like, okay, maybe we find out a little bit more about Tulip's past, about like, because it was kind of skipped over, like, that transition of who she was in the comic book to being who she is now, like here at the beginning. I thought maybe we kind of get flashbacks to that a little bit, and maybe we kind of understand, understand like the reason she is now. Like I said, it's from what I've heard, it seems like she was like a more meekish girl, that she was more kind of kept down and beat down type of woman, and then she became the way she is now, a very strong and confident woman. But essentially it was really messed up, because literally everyone was like, oh yeah, Lacey died. I was like, wow. It's just like Odin got up and he was like, you guys, talking to all of his male workers, don't horseplay so much. Ladies, watch where you're going. Literally, that was it. Tulip was like, what the fuck? And she's like, am I the only one that just sees a girl here hanging just dead upside down? Like, and it's just like, everyone's treating it like, well, it's the cost of business or whatever. It's just like, she's just upset about it. And then at the funeral, like, they're all having a little, well, not really a funeral, but just everyone sitting around reflecting about Lacey. And Tulip's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you ladies need to have more respect. You're running around here in your underwear getting chased by these a-holes. And then, Clive, I couldn't wait, because I was like, oh, Clive, he's stepping to the wrong woman. Tulip's about to mess him up. But the lady kind of pulls her back. And kind of at a point, in something interesting comes up, is the fact is that Tulip's mom actually worked there. What's kind of interesting, because we don't really know much about her family situation. There was a little, no, never mind. There was a little girl, the one that was kind of getting Jesse to smoke. I didn't know if that was Tulip or not. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's someone else. But but even then, nevertheless, like, we don't really know much. We still don't know much about Tulip's background, and but you could tell it seems that is one of the reasons why she's very uncomfortable. Yet she hangs around that place a lot, yet she doesn't like it. I think specifically, it's just because she doesn't like the way the girls are being treated. It's like they want, they're in their situations, and she's not going to try and like change that, but she doesn't appreciate the way the men are just a-holes all the time. And I love, it's like, oh man, she's about to go out there and mess Clive up. She's bashing him in the back. I'm like, oh wow, falls out the window. I was like, oh crap. I was like, she just killed him. And the lights flicker on. Clive's there. I'm like, wait, what? Look out the window. Freaking knocked Cassidy out the window. Which, considering what he kind of did this episode, it's kind of like, okay, Cassidy kind of deserved it. Interestingly enough, I thought it's very interesting. The fact is, this was actually Cassidy and Tulip's first interaction. They've been in the same scene together because they were both at the church at the end of the first episode. But, this is their first interaction. And she's up there just like, oh my God, please, I'm sorry. I thought you were that a-hole Clive, and just Cassidy's there, glass in his neck, bleeding, just like, I love the fact is that he fell out the window, like, with just, all he fell out the window with was a shirt on, and we saw his bare ass. Just felt bad for the man. It's like you can't even get hurt with some dignity. You're half naked and having to be taken to the hospital like that. Obviously, they covered him up a little bit with like a blanket or something, but still rushing to the hospital, just like, please don't die, please don't die. And then Cassidy's like, kiss me, and she's like, okay, and she kisses him, and I was instinctively thinking, oh, he's gonna bite her and just get some of her blood that way, but it's like, no, he's sitting there in the hospital room, and until it's covered in blood, and she sees it just going, follows a trail of blood, and he's there drinking it, and that's kind of the end of it. So I wanted to see more of that, dude, because it's like two characters I really like coming together. Obviously, two main protagonists coming together. It's like I kind of want to see where that would have gone. Like, what kind of questions she would have asked. Like, yo, what the hell's up with you drinking blood? Wait, your wounds are here. What the hell is going on here? I wanted that conversation to come up, but maybe we won't get it till next episode, sadly. But that was kind of interesting. Now, what I was talking about, the fact is that, Cassidy kind of deserved it. Obviously, he's kind of being a quote-unquote mediator between Jesse and as well as those guys from heaven. And essentially, he tried his best to kind of explain it to Jesse, but, obviously he did a terrible job at, like, kind of warning Jesse. It's like, yo, these guys are from heaven. They want what's inside you. Mainly because he doesn't really... obviously because Jesse still doesn't believe him about being a whole vampire thing. And the fact is he kept talking about that he killed these guys, but they came back. They're like government clones or something. It's because even, obviously because he lives the life he lives, he kind of lives kind of a bit of a rock star life and just drinking and freaking doing a lot of drugs, that he's just kind of went in the right mindset to really keep a plus, it's just like, yo, Jesse, this whole situation's a little crazy, even considering I'm a vampire. I've never seen some crazy crap like this. But the fact of the matter is, like, he's just like not being coherent about the whole situation. He did get across Jesse. He's like, what about, you got to think about people. What if people know what's inside you? They're going to want it. He's like, and I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to give it to everyone, essentially. And that was kind of the end of it. Because it is very interesting. Even though he is a vampire, there's still, I guess, a limit to what he's experienced in his 119 years. Like, it is kind of interesting that boundaries don't really cross that much in the supernatural world, I guess. But what we also got is those guys, because it came up and it's like, yo, what are you? Because Cassie's like, what are you? Like, are you angels? And they got a little squirmish. Like, they didn't really give an answer to that. It's like, you're from heaven, but does that make you angels? Now, while I was talking about Cassie being a jerk, it's the fact is he's like, now, how much are you going to compensate him? They're like, wait, what? Like, it's like, you need to pay, because Jesse's got his little vices that he has to deal with. So obviously he needs to be paid for getting this thing taken out of him. And it was just like, it's like, Cassie, you're a bit of an asshole. You're kind of stabbing your friend in the back trying to get money from this. I mean, obviously, we all know you're trying to use the money for yourself and not for him. So why are you sitting here lying? But obviously, as we can tell, what he spends money on, drugs and prostitutes. Prostitute, I don't know if he got multiples or just focused on one. Nevertheless, but, they actually pull out a phone, and that leads to an interesting conversation where we find out that it's like, yo, no. He's like, one of them was like, yo, we have to call them. We have to tell them what's going on. It's like, we don't. We don't have permission to be down here. Plus, if they find out why we're down here, we're screwed. So it's like, okay, for one, they're down here without permission. Okay. But while we're down here, makes me think, could be 100% wrong, but I'm guessing they're the guards for the thing inside of Jesse. Whatever it is, I don't even have an idea. What that thing, like, they were meant to guard it, but somehow they let it out, and they don't want to let anyone in heaven know that they screwed up. Like I said before, like, it seems like they're angels, but the way they were cagey about answering that, it's like, maybe they're not angels, maybe they're some kind of lower heavenly beings or something. Don't know. Maybe that's the case, maybe not. I don't know. But at the very least, that's kind of interesting. Like, That's how I can only interpret that, as like they were the guards and they let that thing out, or maybe they were just screwing around and maybe they were talking to the thing or something, and it kind of convinced them to let it out because the thing has its power. So it's like, I mean, we don't know. I mean, I've heard it doesn't have limits, but does that mean? I mean, obviously it works on a vampire, but still, like something from heaven. It's like, does it work on something from heaven or not? So maybe it actually convinced them to let it out. So maybe, I don't know. Nevertheless, they're trying to keep it hush hush that they're here on Earth trying to do what they're doing. Sadly for them, the phone rings at the end of the episode. I did like that kind of constant. Like, it was a joke at the beginning because it's like the phone is ringing and then they realize, oh, it's the hotel room that's ringing. And then at the end of the episode, they pick up the hotel phone, hello, and then they keep hearing the ringing, realizing it's the heaven phone or whatever. So that was kind of cool. And then on the flip side of this episode, we see Jesse. Like, I don't know, like, we kind of get flashbacks between Jesse and his dad, and for one, we see that Jesse's dad's a much better preacher than he is, because it's only recently, that Jesse started getting a much fuller house at the church, because prior, like, his dad would talk, and, he'd bring a crowd, but, Jesse kind of struggles with it. We saw his dad punching him for smoking, because it's like, oh, you need to lead as an example, and we see his dad beating him with a belt, for that, and then but it immediately cuts to him smoking, and so, it does show you that, even though he's trying to be a good person, follow his dad's example, there is a bit of him that's still rebelling. On some level, he's still rebelling against his dad because he smokes. I don't know whether the show that's supposed to represent, like, Jesse, like I said, rebelling, or was that just supposed to show that he's kind of falling off the path that his dad tried to set him on, but he's trying his best. Like, it's supposed to represent, like, I'm trying my best. It's a little bit at a time. I'm trying to do this whole church thing and push it, to help the community, make the world a better place. But, I still have my vices that I need to kind of deal with. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's more the former than the latter, but maybe it's not. Nevertheless, I did like the fact that he's trying so hard to, like, what can we do to get a bigger crowd? It's like, because to me, I'm instinctively thinking, like, Jesse just wants to use his powers on more people. That's how I interpret it. Things didn't go out that way, but I was thinking, like, he wanted a larger crowd so that he can use his power on all of them at once. Didn't go that way. And in fact, it turned out a little bit differently, because in fact, really his main thing was if he can get the one person in town who's not a big churchgoer, to kind of believe again, to serve God, then he can get everyone to. Because I didn't like the fact that he was like, it's all your fault. I was like, wait, what? There's like all this war, the bombings, fear of touching another person because you're afraid and you never know what kind of disease you might get. Kind of essentially saying everything wrong with the world, it's your fault because you don't have your faith. It's kind of like, that's a little much to say, isn't it? But saying, like, nothing else, like nothing materialistic, even something non-physical, like your love, not even love can save you, but your faith can, and I can. Which to me is like, I don't know, it seems a little conceited of Jesse. I mean, because in his mind, he's thinking, like, I was given this for a reason. God sent me this to kind of save the world, and I'm gonna start with this town. And, it's just like, but he's gotten so big-headed, like, never once thinking about the possibility of, what if it wasn't heaven that necessarily sent that thing to you? What if that thing just found its way to you? As we've seen, that thing kind of passed from person to person, killing them along the way, obviously, but then it settled on Jesse. But the question is, why him out of anyone else? Maybe it's something inside of Jesse that it likes. Like, the fact is that maybe it's not the good person that Jesse's trying to be. Maybe it's the darkness inside of Jesse that is like, that all that stuff from his past, all the kind of wrong things that the side of him that Tulip wants. Maybe it's that side of him that it's drawn to, but he's misinterpreting it. It's like, oh, it's sent by God to help save people, and I'm gonna use it to do such. But as we've seen, the power is intoxicated. Like I said, it's like once you use it and start pushing it, it kind of drives you to use it more and more. Obviously, like, he hasn't got to the point where it's like, okay, it's completely controlled him. Like, he feels the need to use it every time. Because, like I said, there's been plenty of these times where he could have used it, but he didn't. Like I said, telling Tulip to leave town, he could have easily used his power on her, which pushes it in my mind even more that, like, he doesn't want her, he does want her around subconsciously, whether he's willing to admit it or not. But, he doesn't use, like, you know, like, I always feel like I said, know nothing about the comic books, but I feel like that's going to become the issue, is because he's going to start making people do things. But, you know, with that power, you have to be a little more specific, because if you're too vague, obviously we can have a repeat of the guy from the first episode who literally opened up his heart to his to somebody, to his mom. So you can have a situation like that, or it's just a point where it's like the power starts intoxicating him and he just can't control it anymore. Like, the thing inside of him starts pushing him to do some, you know, pushing him to be like, yo, do this, like making people like. That's just how I interpret it. Maybe that's not the case, but I feel like that's where the main issues in the series would come up, is from Jesse and this thing inside of him. Makes you wonder also, how long is he going to be able to keep that a secret from Tulip? He, like I said, he wanted to tell her before, but didn't have an opportunity to. But now that Cassidy, like, you know, her and Cassidy are talking, maybe she'll believe about the whole vampire thing, maybe not. But then maybe we'll circle around and be like, yo, Jesse, you got this thing inside of you, show it to Tulip. It's like, I don't know. And I know I'm flip-flopping so much, but it'd be kind of interesting seeing a little Cassidy and Tulip. You feel like there might be a Jesse and Tulip, but it's like, I don't really know. I'm sure Jesse's not going to be that happy, because it's like, yo, Cassidy's going to be like, oh, there's this amazing girl I met the other day, and then end up finding out it's Tulip. It's like, the amazing girl you're talking about is Tulip? Oh, you know each other type of situation, so. But essentially, he got that guy, Odin, to be like, oh, I'm a serf guy. He's like repeating it, oh, serf guy. And everyone in the church is like, oh my God, you got Odin. It's like, yes, you know, kind of restoring their faith, because it's like, if you can get Odin out of anybody, especially because he's kind of like the big man in town, it's like, if you can get him, because the whole point of getting him there was to get a fuller house, because if people see the Odins there, like, oh, like, Jesse was able to convince him to come out of anybody, because it seems like he's a man who lost his faith, but he's like, I'll serve God, I'll serve God. I'm interpreting that as one of those situations of like, you should have been a little bit more specific, because now I feel like a lot of, you know, obviously his business is probably going to crumble, because it's like, no, screw my business. I need to be serving God. Everything I need to do is to serve God, you know? So I feel like things are going to go bad because he wasn't specific enough. I mean, like, it's just my opinion, my thoughts on how that might happen. Very interesting name, Odin, because I didn't know his name prior to this. I actually had to look at, like, I had heard it, and then just like, because I accidentally came across it on the internet. I was like, what character's name is Odin? I didn't read too much into it, and I read it's like, oh, that guy's Odin. Okay. I also remember the lady I always kept referring to, like, oh, she's the mayor. It's like, no, she's not the mayor. She's just a mom that, you know, obviously has a thing for Jesse, but, like, you know, she's kind of his, she helps him out a lot. I thought she was the mayor. She's not. We actually saw the mayor this day episode. Apparently, him and Lucy, because that's her name, apparently have a little bit of a side thing. Apparently, because she was. I thought it was kind of interesting, because you can obviously tell he was trying to hit on her, like, oh, let's drink wine and everything. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's just like, you know, I'm never going to be with you, right? I was like, wow, that was very blunt of her. It's like, I mean, I thought that was just kind of like you know, I was like, oh, I guess that's going to be something I noticed. Obviously, we as a viewer is going to notice, but she's not going to point it out. I was like, no, she pointed it out. He's like, yeah, you tell me multiple times. Like, oh, okay. But it seems like they kind of have a thing where it's like, oh, we just have sex, that's it. I don't know whether that's just because she can't be with Jesse, because it's so obvious she has feelings for Jesse. So I don't know whether it's just, she is a single mom, so she's allowed to, you know, do what she wants. It's not like she's tied down to Jesse or anything anyway. So I'm not trying to judge her. It's like, but I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, huh. Because I don't know, because I guess in my mind, I thought it was a situation of like, when you have feelings for someone, you kind of cut everyone out. But it's just like, hey, man, like I said, once again, she's a single mom. Hey, you do you. Like, you know, single moms need some loving too. I know it sounds weird saying that out loud, but nevertheless, I just thought that was kind of interesting. It's like, oh, I'll never be with you. We can have sex, but that's it. Like, it's never going to be anything more than that. And she's like, last time you almost got caught by my kids or something like that. So I was like, huh. I was like, because I didn't know if I was interpreting it wrong. I'm like, am I? And then she started taking off her pants. And I was like, oh, I'm not interpreting that wrong. And then he followed and was like, oh, I mean, that was very interesting. So So I am very curious to see, where we go from here. Jesse, now he's convinced Odin, kind of shown everyone like, restore your faith. Like I said, I can only assume that things are going to go bad with Odin. I did like the fact is that Donnie didn't show up to work today. He was apparently feeling sick. It's like it's understandable feeling a little sick after what happened last episode. So I'm wondering, are we going to see more of Donnie, or is Donnie just going to like? I love to see more interactions between him and Jesse. Like he'll be walking, and then Jesse comes, and he's just like, yo, we gotta get out, get the hell away from me, Custer, you freak, or something like that. I don't know. Then the Tulip and Cassidy situation, as well as the dudes from heaven, like the phone was ringing, so I was like, are they going to answer or what? Or will there be someone else from heaven sit down to find out, like, yo, what the hell are you idiots doing down there? You know you're not supposed to be down there without permission. And so someone in heaven ends up finding out why you're down there. It's like, it becomes a situation of like, let's keep our mouth shut, try to keep it quiet as long as possible. I'm thinking, because that thing is obviously it's very powerful and it's very dangerous. I want to assume like if heaven found out that, oh yeah, that thing's loose, like it'd bring out an army to try and retrieve it. So, because apparently there are two ways to get it out. There's the two ways they tried before: the chainsaw and the song. I didn't really get what they were doing before, but apparently that thing likes the song, so they were going to try and draw it out, but it didn't work. Because I feel like I said, I think it's found a good host in Jesse for whatever reason, and it's kind of settled in, it's kind of nuzzled itself in, and has no intentions of coming out. I don't know. I don't know whether it came to Jesse because, like I said, because of something inside of him, or is it because it kind of has plans of its own. I don't really know how this thing works. Like I have like a very vague notion of what it is, but I don't know if it has like a mind of its own. I would assume so. It seems like whether it's like a sentient being or not is what I mean, of where it's like, oh, it's got its own plans, or is it something that just kind of exists and acts on instinct? Those are things we're still like in the dark about, because they've never outright said what that thing is. Because even Cassie was asking about it, but they didn't really give it a definite. They were just like, yeah, we can't answer that. So it's kind of on a need to know basis. So that's still being kept secret for a little while. But I'm very interested, loving the show so far. Like I said, we get more and more questions, and I'd love to see where it goes. Because also there was that thing with Odin too. Maybe this is the reason why he lost his faith. Because we saw Jesse's dad visit him, like at least a room that had his name on it, and it's like Jesse looked into the room and saw something, but we didn't get to see it. So I don't know, because all we got was Jesse's dad saying some people can't be saved. I thought this episode was going to lead up to specifically, what led to Jesse dying, and I was thinking like, Jesse's dad died, and I was like, oh, maybe Odin was behind that or something. Maybe that whole situation there led to it, but then you saw Jesse hanging out with Odin, so I was like, no, because if that was the case, he would have, not unless he doesn't know, like maybe Odin hired some people to kill his dad. I don't know, it's probably me overthinking it, because I was like, if that were the case, he wouldn't be hanging out with Odin. So, I don't know, like, it makes you wonder what led to, like, Jesse's dad being in this situation is, because it did seem like he was a pillar of the community. No one, like, well, what can we really say? Like, we don't really know, because we've only seen small fractions of who Jesse's dad is. Probably just like Jesse, he probably had a dark side too, and that's probably what started the whole situation. Or maybe they just got caught up in something they just couldn't get out from under. Who knows? Like I said, very interested to see how everything goes next episode. Very curious if Tulip's still going, try and gun, she's still gunning for Clive or not. So that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.